Hey, everybody, welcome to Keep the Change. We are, as always, so glad you're joining us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are in the Leadership in the Dealership series. And I have to tell you, I think it's been about 2 weeks ago, I was at the CBT studios in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got to meet a bunch of people that are like-minded individuals, folks that I'd met years ago from Car Church, folks that I've done business with, folks that have been on this podcast before. But a gentleman I had never met before was a guy sitting right across from me at dinner, and just a great soul. You can tell he's just got this great spirit about him. And that's not something we talk about always in the car business, but I think you'll see what I'm talking about when we share it, that who he is becomes very evident. So Ken Cook, owner of BZ Automotive in Indiana, is our guest today. Ken, thank you so much for being on the Keep the Change podcast.
Well, hey, Bart, I really appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast and just giving me some time to talk and just get to know you a little bit better too. So I'm excited.
Thank you. So it's so cool. We were hanging out. We like to do a little get to know each other, especially in the cases when we really hadn't ever talked. And Ken starts asking me about me. I've never had a podcastee ask the podcaster about himself. And it was so cool. I thought, oh, wow, this is how it feels. This is so good. So we had a great 10 minutes. And thank you again for allowing me to talk. I like to do that. So, Ken, let's go to you, though, man. This is so much about you. I know, by the way, your son, Kenny, is one of your sales managers, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. He works on my Chevrolet side.
Well, that's the best. But I want to talk about family. I want to talk about your faith. I want to talk about your business. But take me back. Take me back from the beginning of how you got to be where you are now, which is an independent dealer in a land full of giants, the Lithias, the AutoNations, and you have been the Goliath that decided, I want to own my own store. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm going to succeed at this. The BZ Automotive is a Ford and Chevrolet store in Indiana. Tell us all about what got you here, the past, wherever you want to run with it. Okay. And I might interrupt you once in a while, but tell us about you and your journey.
Well, my journey actually starts right out of high school. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I enlisted into the Marine Corps. Unfortunately, God always has a plan, and when you tell God your plan, He a lot of times laughs at you and will correct you. So obviously, a short career in the Marine Corps, I fractured my kneecap, was medically discharged, so I'm a disabled veteran, and so I returned back to Indiana, where I knew. Unfortunately, whenever I returned, my parents had already left. So I really didn't have anything to come back to. So I was thrown out on my own right away. And at that point in time, you mentioned the RV industry. In where we're from, we sit very close to the RV capital of the world. And so I started, I had to make money. So I went to a trailer factory. That's what we call RVs, it's trailer factories. Realized after probably 6 months to a year, this is just not for me. Not that I think it's beneath me, it just wasn't my skill set. And I think a lot of times we have to analyze, what do we do well at? And it just wasn't. So I had it would be my wife's stepfather helped me get into my first car job at Don Ayer's Honda GMC Pontiac out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I was there for a quick second. Don't even tell people this a lot of times, just because it was only there for a month, And one of the things I first realized is the training just wasn't that great. And they threw me into like a training room, threw some Joe Verdi tapes at me, and just let me go. And which, no disrespect to Joe Verdi. I mean, I've learned a lot from him. But I just, training is not something you could just do one time and be done. You have to continuously do it. In fact, one of my core values as a dealership and also personally is to be a lifetime student. Mm-hmm. So I realized quickly that, working in Fort Wayne, because I was commuting a long time, wasn't going to work for me. So I was very fortunate enough to get a job closer to where I worked, which is actually funny. They'd actually declined me for a job the first time I applied and turned me down, which fast forward, 6, 7 months, I think I actually got a position there with Jack D Chevrolet. It was actually Jack D Haven and Jack D's out of Kennedale, and became a salesperson. I was a professional salesperson. I did that for almost 8 years, averaged almost 30 cars a month, starting in 1999. I'm showing my age a little bit, but I quickly realized, that I just wanted to serve the customer and just take care of them. And I didn't have any training. In fact, the first time that, whenever my training there at Jack D's was, hey, there's the phone, there's the key box, and there's the lot. And that was it. So I continued on my sales career, figured out everything, as I saw salespeople come and go, managers come and go. Unfortunately, you just see a lot of turnover in our industry. So sold cars for 7.5 years, and Rick Zollers, which was the Burnmore Zollers, whenever was here out of Ligonier and the Ford Chevrolet, I got a call from him and said, hey, I would like for you to come manage my Chevrolet store. I said, hey, I know how to sell cars, but I have no idea how to lead people and manage people. And he says, hey, I will help you with that. So looking at that, me and my wife made the decision together. She was going through nursing school. I had two young kids, and obviously it was a big jump for me and big leap of faith. But I knew in my heart that God would always lead me down the correct path. And I always think of things happen for us, not to us. I think it's something I like to live my life by, because I'm not going to look there. I'm not going to sit there and just think, hey, why is this happening to me? I'm going to think, why is this happening? What is God trying to teach me, and what lesson is he teaching me? So I always try to look at things as a positive mindset, because I feel that you have to. There's enough negativity in the world. But anyway, so I saw that there was an opportunity because he had no succession plan. And so I eventually just partnered with Rick, and when I say partnered, came on and worked for him. So I started in 2007 with Rick here. I went through 08, through some of the challenging times, learned a lot from him. He was a great operator, and just had a great opportunity with him. Whenever I started having conversations about purchasing the store from him, and one thing led to another. And then at the end of the day, whenever it was time for him to move, he didn't know if he wanted to carry the paper, because that's always something people will say, hey, we'll give you an opportunity. But whenever it came down to actually doing it, it's like, hey, wait a minute, this is a little bit more money than I want to trust this young man with. So, which again, I am thankful he did, because that actually made me have to meet with attorneys, had me meet with investors, meet with accountants, and understand how to do business. And ultimately, in 2015, January, me and my partner ended up purchasing the dealership from Rick Zollers. It was formerly Burnmore Zollers, and then later on, we ended up moving it to BZ Automotive Group. So that's a little bit of my story in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more details in it than just that, but for the most of it, that was it.
So you bought that in 2015 with your partner. Do you still have your partner?
No, me and him did part ways in 22. We had a Chrysler store. We ultimately ended up buying probably a year and a half later. And long story short, we ultimately ended up splitting. He took the CDJR store, and then I kept the Chevrolet and Ford franchise. So.
Right on. So talk to me. I hear a lot about this. For one thing, I want to go back to that part that you've got behind you. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. Obviously, Apple and Spotify, I need to paint the picture for you. And that is your core values, which you've already brought up. Tell us about those core values, where they come from, what that means for you, your family, and your business. That's a big deal. You brought it up again, and I want to find out what makes you tick. And by the way, another picture you have behind you is the family. I've never seen anybody do this either. The family picture of all your employees right behind you. And that talks a lot about you. But talk about core values first.
Okay. I remember one of the things whenever we bought our Chrysler store, whenever you try to expand and grow your organizations, it brings up a whole new set of problems. So as we did that, I realized how important culture is. And So I had to start learning about it, because if you don't understand something, the best thing to do is to get around people, find a great mentor. There's a ton of books, podcasts on businesses. So I would challenge anybody, if you're struggling with the internal culture, there's enough great books out there, and great information, to where you can learn so much about what other people have done, and what they didn't do that works. And I think that and what doesn't work. So one of the things that kept on coming up, and I kept on hearing, was core values. And there's a great Patrick Lindoni, I think
Lencioni, maybe?
yes, the
Yeah.
Table Group.
Yeah.
He does a great job, and has a lot of great books about core values. And understanding and reading some of his material was very eye-opening to me. But then also too, getting in groups, and listening to good podcasts, business podcasts. Andy Faselis and Ed Milet were two great mentors of mine that I actually listened to a lot, and learned a lot about culture and a standard that you have to have. And I remember coming up with that core values, and before I actually debuted them, or unveiled them, it was after me and my partner had split. And that's just because I just didn't feel, if I was going to unroll these and bring these out, I knew as a leader, I had to be about it. And everybody in my leadership team had to have we had to be rowing the boat the same direction.
Oh,
And
so
if I
good.
don't have that on my leadership team, then I can't be successful.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the first and foremost. I need to make sure that everybody, including myself, is carrying a standards, and we're rowing the boat the same way.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, there's no way that some words on a wall and some things that we talk about is going to change. And I am going to tell you, if anybody's ever second guessing something, or is maybe thinking, teetering, should we do core values? I would tell you, it's been one of the most positive things I can say that I've ever done inside my organization. And a lot of times I thought it was just something that I was going to talk about, but it's amazing. My team embraces it. They carry out the message, and they hold me accountable just as much as I hold them accountable.
Oh,
I always say leadership flows both ways. It flows from me to you, back to you to me. And I think as a leader, you have to embrace these, you have to be about these, and you have to constantly be getting better yourself. And core values challenges me every day, because now it is how we hire, it is how we manage, and it's how we fire, is based upon our core values. Because as one employee put it, they said it's a clear roadmap of what we need to focus on and what is important inside an organization. So that is the biggest takeaway, that if I could give anybody one message, is the importance of core values. And we also too have a just cause, but it allows us to understand, how our customers should be treated. And in our just cause, we actually have our customers and employees, because employees need to be treated just as good, and just as, actually more importantly, because I want internal culture to be good, because if they're happy, they will take care of the customer.
Yeah. Man, you and I spent 15 minutes before we hit the record button, and I thought, dude, this guy, you were kindred spirits, but so impressed with you, and so impressed with the way you communicate it. There's not a hype. You can tell this is who you are. And I believe that from the first time I met you. There's a lot of hype in our business, as there is anywhere. Everybody's trying to make themselves bigger. And, John Maxwell talks about getting out of the people pile. Some people have gone to the other end to get out of the people pile. Look at me. And that's obviously been true with automotive for a long period of time. And when I talk to somebody like you, the guys that we met in Atlanta, that we met again in Atlanta, that all of them walk that path. They believe that. But you really, really ooze that. And I want to congratulate you for that. And thank you for that. Okay. So go ahead and give us those core values, and give us a little bit about why that's on your list. Okay. And just read on down that list and go through all of them, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, no problem. First and foremost, I want to say, I don't have it figured out. I promise you, that's the one thing. Like I am a lifetime student, and like I make mistakes, and I try. I think sometimes people, when they speak, they talk like they have it all figured out. And the more I get in rooms with highly successful people, as far as business wise, because I think somebody can be judged upon their success in a lot of different areas. Just because maybe a person's not rich doesn't mean that they're not great, wildly successful with their
No way.
marriage, with their
Mhm.
personal, maybe with their faith, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about business wise, the thing that I see, nobody's got it figured out. So that's why I always want to be like, you have to be humble. And I think that is definitely a key. And I'm not even saying that I won't have that as a core value. Currently, it's not. But I think that organizations change and they develop, and sometimes you have to reevaluate your core values. So our core values here at the dealership, we have 6 right now, and the one behind me is only going to show 5, and that's because we deemed that there was a core value that we had to add just because it was important. It was like something that we were missing. So number one is going to be integrity, and I put that as number one, and I'm probably actually going to change number one to believing in the just cause. So, and I'll explain that here in a second. But so number one is actually going to be we'll do it the way I'm going to refocus it. So, believing in a just cause, and our just cause is actually a spinoff from one of my friends and mentors, Glenn Lundy, which I'm sure a lot of your podcast listeners have heard of him from Dan's Comments. It is basically to change the perception of the way people view our industry. We want to make them feel special and important and like they are the only ones. We will offer an experience that exceeds our customers and employees' expectations today, tomorrow, and in the future. We will not just sell and service cars. We will create raving fans. And that is because so many times as a salesperson, I would hear customers tell me, "Ken, I hate buying a car." And it would crush me because I'm like, this is the number 2 biggest purchase typically somebody will make in their lifetime. Why would it not be a fun experience? And I think that's on us. I really do. I think that's on us. Um, so believing in our just cause is number one. Number 2 is going to be integrity, because we have to have integrity in everything we do. If we don't know something, we tell people we don't know. But integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is looking. And I want my team to always have that with every interaction, with both customers and also to employees, going the extra mile. And I don't mean so many times dealerships just, we advertise, we have great service, we advertise, we're going to take care of it. But do you really? So many times we just talk about it, but you have to be about it. And that's what I try to instill in our core values. And remind me to come back to something that we do here at the dealership, actually, that we have a picnic coming up in October. And I'm going to tell you what we do on some of our core values too. Number 3 is going to be teamwork makes the dream work. We should always be helping each other succeed. A lot of times within dealerships, especially, we have silos. Customer comes into the service department. Service department is like, hey, that's a sales problem. You're going to have to go talk to them. Sales department takes no ownership. Hey, that's a service issue. You're going to have to take there. No, it may not be your fault, but it's your tag. It's your problem, and you're going to help. So we are a dealership. We are one. We are BZ, Team BZ. We're not sales department. We're not service department. We're one team. And I think that's important, that you don't have silos inside your organization. Ultimately, you're always going to have those, but the customer doesn't see us as that. They see us as a one dealership.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, that your team is working together. Easier said than done, but it can be accomplished. Number 5 is going to be lifetime student. And I think it's important, if you're in any type of leadership role inside an organization, you yourself have to be a lifetime student, both professionally and personally. You have to constantly be getting better, because if you're not better, how can you train and pour into other people? Because it's kind of like it's the glory days, right, at high school. If you're not getting better, if you're still talking those same stories that you told back in high school whenever you were the captain of the football team, like, that's old. Like, we're 20, 30, 40 years past that. Like, what's the new story that you're developing in your life, and what are you doing to improve? And then the last one is going to be urgency, and that was the one that we added, just because a call cannot get returned fast enough. Whether it's internally, whether it's with the customer, people expect our industry to get them the information quick and get them that as quick as possible. Obviously, yes, there's always a time limit on what we can do, but if we have urgency in everything we do and patience to get them through, I think John Maxwell said that a long time ago. I love that quote. Have urgency to get things through, but patience to see them through is a quote I love, especially talking to the new generation that are coming in. So those are my core values. And I did ask, one of the things I said we hire, manage, and fire upon these, but I feel that you have to reward people based upon your core values. And one of the things we do here at BZ is we actually reward people on those. And so I talked about we do a lot of team building activities. We have a kayaking trip here within the next couple of weeks that we're doing as an organization. We have a picnic that we do to have our families together. That's the picture you actually see behind me is whenever we were at our picnic. And I want people to come together and see each other outside of work and just get to know each other and who we are, and sort of sense break bread together because we are a family together. But what we do is we actually we award people based upon what they do here of the core values. And just to give you just a couple examples, I've had two people that are, very, very dear to my heart. Actually, I love all my employees very much, and I want the best for them. But the first recipients, whenever I introduced our core values, is going the extra mile was the one we did the award upon. And we actually sent, these two individuals have worked with the company for, I think the one 30 some years, and her husband almost 40 years. And both go just extremely, just salt of the earth people, just amazing team players. And we actually sent them to a trip to Hawaii just because of what they do, because we awarded on that they're constantly going the extra mile for not only for our customers, but also too for employees. And I think that's important. And it's one of the things I remember whenever I first started here at BZ, that was a thing with one of my service manager who I actually sent, my body shop manager. It was one of the things he wanted to do. He wanted to go to Hawaii. And I always remember him telling me about that story. So later on in life, fast forward, I was able to help him and his wife, which both work for me, to go on a trip because of what they do for their organization. Another thing we did, another award for my Chevrolet service manager, he actually got elected because it's elected by his peer on the core values. He's into golf. So we actually gave him a gift certificate to a local golf place here. And actually he got to pick out new clubs and everything. So when we're talking about core values, I like to, number one, recognize people, for the things that they do for the dealership. But then I also too want to make sure that I know them good enough to where I understand what their love language is. And why I say that is because you can't just do the same thing for each and every individual inside your organization. You have to understand what's important to them. So I kind of take the 5 love languages, the way that we give and receive love, and try to incorporate that into my organization to understand what is important to that individual. So that is why I try to give gifts or do things, because maybe the team members, their love language is money, and maybe that's the season of life that they're in. So maybe we do another paycheck for them. Maybe they want an extra day off. We've done that before, or we give them another week off of what they've already had. So understanding what's important to them, and then making sure that you reward on that, because people love, whenever they're being rewarded, they love being recognized, and then also to being rewarded on the behaviors that you're looking for.
So talk to me about, obviously you've had great mentors. You've had you've been obedient to the teachings that you've learned. You mentioned the Maxwell's a big part of your teaching. You mentioned Alex, or Andy, and you mentioned Ed Milat. And obviously you've listened to what you were told. You study a lot. Tell me a little bit, if I asked you the same question you asked me earlier, and I'm gonna give my answer so the audience knows what I said. But first of all, I want to hear from you. And the question you asked me had to do with, how do you manage? How do you motivate? How do you influence leaders. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah. Yes. That's a great question, Bart.
Well, you started it. You asked me that. Man, I asked a great question.
Yeah. I think the first thing I think what makes it, or I think what I help motivates is I take a hard look at myself first. And because I think that's the first thing you have to do. And, even John Maxwell says, like, if I'm a 3 or 4 operating at a 3 or 4, because I think everybody has the potential of a 10. I shouldn't say not everybody does. Well, they do. We could go both ways on that. I could be talked, but if you want something bad enough, I feel that you'll do the things needed. And I think the first thing you have to do as a leader is you got to take a hard, honest look at yourself and say, are you operating at the highest level that you're asking your team members to? Because if I'm coming in on a Tuesday, leaving on a Thursday, not showing up to meetings, not being a good representation of your core values of the organization, if you're not being about those, then how can you ask somebody else to do those? So I first look at myself and make sure that I am operating on the highest level. One of the things I recently did, it was probably back in 2017, or excuse me, 17, 18. Whenever I bought you got to take back to 2015, whenever I bought the stores, I started focusing just everything on the store and allowing my health to regress a little bit, not working out, not eating correctly. So on my health journey, I had to analyze and be honest with myself. As I can, how can you operate at the highest level if you're overweight, you're putting garbage into your brain? So I had to really, analyze myself, because I say this all the time. How you do one thing in life is typically how you do everything. So I had to really take a hard look at myself, and I changed. It was probably more so, I think, around 2019, and I just made it a part of my everyday, curriculum to be disciplined, because there's going to be hard days, there's test days, and it's not the days that it's easy that you're showing up. It's got to be the days that are hard. There's got to be the days that you don't want to do things, but I'm still showing up. I'm still making sure that I'm pouring in and giving 100% of what I can give that day. It may not be 100% of me, but it's what I can give that day, to each and everyone. So I challenge each and everybody that's listening to this, reevaluate yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you being the best leader that you can inside your organization? So that's the first thing I would say. You got to take a hard, honest look at yourself.
Yeah, so good. And I want to go deep into that, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, please.
You and I had talked about that same question, and what we talked about was blind spots. There's a study on human behavior called the Johari Window, which I'm sure you're familiar with. There's actually
I'll have to look that up.
There's actually 4 windows into it. One is arena. And the arena is I know, you know. In other words, this is part of me. This is the authentic part of me, right? And those are things I'm really aware of myself. And then there's those blind spots. Those are the things I don't know, but you, if you're a connected person to me, you do know that about me. So the blind spots. The next one is the mask. And the mask is those things, of course, that I've got. Every human, I remember in 8th grade psychology class, they talked about everybody's got a mask of some sort. Everybody's hiding something. And masks we are. I mean, we live in a world where we're hiding something, right? And I don't say the business necessarily, but it has had that reputation. You've removed the masks on how you guys deal with business. A lot of our guests that come on here have removed the mask. They're very transparent, but the industry as a whole for a number of years has had the perception of that. And I don't think that's true with a lot of the people that I talk to. I think the most successful people in this industry have removed those. But that's, I know, but you don't know. Those are the things I'm just not going to let you in on. And the last one is potential. And potential says that I don't know, you don't know. We don't know our potential. We hope for our potential, but we don't know it. Here's what we know. If you and I can increase our arena, that's who you are, Ken. If you and I can decrease our blind spots, that's what you're talking about here. Getting rid of those areas, study, give good accountability partners. We talked about a therapist, either offline or online, and how powerful that is for us. If you and I can get rid of those masks and just come from the place of real, then guess what happens to our potential? It goes to the next level. So how do we do it? Well, I'm believing that I love assessments. I'm I'm an assessment junkie. I'm a master in DISC with Maxwell, but I also really love emotional intelligence. And you and I talked about that a little bit. There's 4 parts to emotional intelligence, but doing an assessment with somebody and revealing their emotional intelligence allows them to say, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I could be in this. That gives me an opportunity to grow. If you tell them, even though they really respect you, they might hear that because you're a mentor and a coach to them. If I tell them as an outsider initially, they might not buy in. But when an assessment is looked at, they might say, oh, that makes sense to me. And number 1 with emotional intelligence is self-awareness, right? Just what you said, Coach. The next part of emotional intelligence is self-management. And that is, it's one thing to know you're this way, you're going to do anything about it, right? And then the third part, again, for those who listen to the podcast, you hear this all the time, but social awareness. How good are you understanding the emotions of a room? How connected are you emotionally to the feelings of the people in the room? And lastly, relationship management. How good are you at building relationships? Now, here's why I think that's so important. Whether we admit it or not, or want to admit it, a lot of people are in this industry to make money. And what we know is the higher the emotional intelligence, the more money they make. And that every point that goes up in emotional intelligence raises their income about $2,700. And people who have high emotional intelligence average almost $30,000 more per year than those who don't. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but every successful person, including Ken Cook, has high emotional intelligence. You can tell yours is really high, and you've had successes in so many areas because of that. Another thing we've done, and I'll just land this plane, is you talk about culture, man. And we have this thing called a culture scorecard. And I'm going to do a webinar on it, Ken, on the 11th of August. I'm so excited. And it's about the scorecard that has 10 different components: communication, teamwork, development, all these great components. And it lets them, those people, rate their business anonymously on how they feel those things are. And the courage that a dealer would have to have their staff do that, knowing, I might not like it. It is unbelievable. For one thing, once a dealer has the courage to do that, or a business operator, I do it for churches too. Once they have the courage to do that, they're willing to say, okay, this is where we need to grow. I did one for my ministry, and it was the most powerful thing I'd done. But it took a willingness to be, okay, Bart, are you ready to get humble? And John Maxwell says great leaders are great followers, and they have humility, right? So when you and I get that place, and you come from humility, you come from self-awareness, you come from that place of just knowing yourself. When we get to that place, now we're ready to grow, right? That's how we grow our leaders, because they get their knees cut out a little bit under them and think, oh, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And it's okay. I need that. You need that. We all need to know what we don't know. And we all have, like you said, I'm not perfect. I'm certainly not. I'm super fun. And I will tell you that I love it when I have self-awareness. It hurts sometimes, but I love it. I love it.
That's so true. One of the things, it's funny that you mentioned this, because we have a managers meeting this Thursday, and I'm going to play a podcast for them and listen, in our meeting. And basically it's like it's John Maxwell, and he's talking about you said it earlier before, it was the lid.
The law of the lid, chapter 1 in the 21 irrefutables. Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to listen to number 1 to that law, and then there it is. And then we're going to take an assessment and we're going to analyze ourselves. And also, too, I want my team to analyze me
Yeah.
because I feel that, I could think that I'm an 8 or a 9, but
Yeah.
if my team views me as a 4 or 5, then I need to listen to them and
Yeah.
understand them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many people, they want to say, well, maybe you can't take something from that individual that maybe thinks that there's some area of improvement. But what if you could be subjective and you could really say, hey, this person said X about me or my personality. Is that true? And is there anything I can do to change that? And I think that when you look at yourself subjectively and like you're really honest with yourself, you can really make changes in your life.
Yes.
Recently, Bart, he was one of, in the car business, I have always had alcohol. And then recently, within the last year, I was like, you know what? Alcohol's not serving me anymore. And it was on my decision. Nothing happened. But I was like, this is holding me back from being a better leader. So I decided, and it's challenging because everything we do, is revolved around alcohol. In fact, if alcohol didn't exist today, and you and I had this great partnership, and we wanted to introduce alcohol to the world, it would never work because it is a toxin. It kills or it kills so much, inhibition. It destroys families and professions. But yet we choose to continue to have it in society. And that was a very hard thing for me because it changes the lifestyle. And it was one of those things. I was like, Ken, if you're going to grow and become a better leader, you got to do hard things. And that was one of the things. It is challenging. And it's been one of the best decisions that I've ever made is to choose not to do that because it allows me to operate at the highest level. I'm going to ask my team to operate at the highest level. Why am I not operating at the highest level? So I think it is first and foremost that you take a real hard look at yourself and ask yourself, are you operating at the highest level?
So
are you showing up before people do? Are you taking care of your health and fitness? Are you paying attention to what you're putting in your body, into your mind? And are you doing these things? That is the first thing we have to do for a leader. Take care of ourselves, because if you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else.
Oh man, this is just, you're going to write a book someday, aren't you?
I just made a lot of mistakes.
Amen. Well, I think you and I had this discussion. I was on Adam's podcast last week. He said, "How did you get in the car business?" And I said, "Well, here we go. Let's shock them, right?" And I said, "What happened was," and afterward I thought, "Did I just do that?" But I said, "How I got in the car business? I drank a glass of whiskey and a glass of vodka, chugged both of them, and I went downtown when I was 14 years old to the Beehive, which was a student center. Obviously, that was a journey that I started to take within automotive. I mean, that had nothing to do with automotive, but it's how I got in the car business. The reason I bring that up is all my life, I wanted my dad to notice me. And I figured if I drank out of his liquor cabinet and he saw me drunk, he'd notice me. Weird, huh? And I wrecked 5 cars in high school, actually 6. But why? Because I wanted my dad to notice me. I know that sounds like dysfunction, and it is. It is. I mean, a lot of people have worse stories than that. It is. But what's that have to do with what you're saying about automotive? I got in the business. Why? Because I wanted my dad to notice me. I was in automotive for 42 years, wore every hat in the dealership, general manager, all the way down. Why did I get in it? Because I wanted my dad to notice me. And one day I realized that. So I will tell you this, and thank you for the story. I agree with you. We're outliers a little bit. When I was 28 years old, I ran the rehab. Most people on this podcast know it. That's why it's called Keep the Change. Went into rehab, got sober, haven't drank in 41 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? And the purpose of the reason I even tell that story is I was in the pit and now I have peace. And you and I are outliers. It is tough. Everybody in the world drinks. And it's tough not being there. But I've learned that, hey, that's who I am. And I don't know how long I'm going to be on this planet, but I guarantee you, my dad died at 59. and I'm older than that. And I will guarantee you that I will be here, if God's willing, for a long time and make an impact, because I made that decision to stop drinking all those years ago. It changed my life. Now, why do I bring that up in an automotive show? Because there are a lot of people out there that have the masks on. They don't want anybody to know it.
Yeah.
Now, I can't, you and I talked about this before. I can't go to a dealership and say, hey, I can, and I do. I'm a Christian and I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'd like to train your salespeople. They will go, what? No, thank you. Right? We're heathens and we're drunks, and I want to know how to make more money. Those aren't my clients, man.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I don't advertise that I'm going to help them stay sober. Not at all. But I do know that my lifestyle and what you talked about has changed my life. And if somebody, 1 out of 2,000, comes up to me and say, brother, how do you stay sober? I'm struggling. That's what I'm on this planet for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and there's many times when I always tell my story, because you never know who's listening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not everybody agrees with my faith. Not everybody agrees with our faith. But what we know is sometimes we might be the only evidence they see of how to do this the right way, right?
Yeah. Well, Bart, I think you do an amazing job. Like, you telling your story and helping is, I promise you are helping people without ever noticing that.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you, I remember one story, and this was, I didn't know this until maybe 15, 20 years ago. After it happened, there was an individual, this was shortly after I had got out of high school, and I was told by a friend of mine who was a sheriff at the time, hey, you need to go talk to this individual, because they knew I was close. We're on to them. We know what they're doing. I think they were selling drugs or something. And I remember having a conversation like, what the F are you doing? What you need to stop this. Like, they're on to you. That individual told me, they said, Ken, they said, I sold everything I had that night. They said, I enrolled into school the next day. And they have a master's degree. They run a company now. I think employs 300 people. So again, you never know, how much power you have with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So you should always be careful of who's listening.
Yeah.
Be mindful of what you're saying, because you affect so many people, especially for the people that listen to this podcast. You never know. And I always tell my leadership team when we're talking, like, you have to be about what you're talking about. Yeah. Because if you're not, if you sit there and say, I always equate to, it's like when we're raising kids. If you tell your kids not to drink and smoke, and you're sitting there smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, they're going to do what you do, not what you say. Yeah. So if I'm going to ask people to operate at the highest level, treat our customers with the utmost respect and their team members, I better dang well do the stuff myself, because it's so important. Yeah. The things that you do speak a lot more than the things that you talk about. And I wish people understood that.
Yeah,
so you're touching enough. You're helping a lot of people. So thank you for what you're doing, Bart.
Oh, bless you, brother. You know what's interesting? At this season of my life, my mission statement is, my job is to help everybody I talk to reach their max capacity. Period. End of discussion. Whatever that means, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever, financial. But you're a person of faith, man. You've walked in your faith. You talk your faith. You are about that. Tell us as we wrap here, and I don't want to shortcut this though, but tell us what your faith has meant to you, but not just personally, with your team, and how your values and who you are has affected the bottom line.
I think it's in everything I do. I think about the way that, I was put on this earth to help people and train. And I feel at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about everybody else. It's about how many people I can help. Because too many people, they want to think about it. What's in it for me? I don't think like that. I think of the mindset of, if I help enough people get what they want, I will ultimately be taken care of. I don't think about in terms of how much money can I make this year. I think in terms, how many leaders and people can I help? Because I want to grow leaders, because I feel if I can help send them out there and they're better because they were with me for a little bit, that makes me smile and happy. Okay. And what can I do for my community? And what can I do to give back? One of the things I'm seeing with the youth today, everybody wants to complain about them. I honestly think it's on us. I think we have not done a good enough job of teaching them. The kids that are coming up in today into our world are actually amazing people.
Yeah.
Now, do they communicate differently? Yes. Do they learn differently? Yes. But that's on us to understand and to make sure that we're getting through to them, because they are great. The things that I have to teach them are basic stuff, like how communication, internally. How do you shake somebody's hand? How do you look somebody in the eye? It's stuff that they have just never been taught. Instead of just throwing them away, saying this new generation is worthless, they're not. They're actually amazing people, amazing individuals, and I'm excited for them. But going back to your question about my faith, I'm a Catholic. I am a diehard Catholic. I believe, in our Lord and Savior, and I practice. Both my kids went to Catholic school. We were in church every Sunday, being about that, and I don't think it's just going to church, but it's walking the walk. Like we're all imperfect humans, and understanding that, and never trade that you're perfect. Never portray that you have everything figured out, because no one does. At the end of the day, it's, can I be a little bit better than what I was yesterday? And that's what I'm fighting each and every day. How can I bring more value? And I can do it in the right way. With our leadership team, daily we read I think I shared this with you, the Maxwell Leadership Bible. It's a Bible verse, and then it's a leadership message underneath that. And I always tell people, hey, I don't care what faith you believe in or if you even believe, but there's a message in here that we can all learn, because the Bible is the greatest sales book that you'll ever read, if you actually choose to read it and understand it. So faith is in all aspects of my life. And I do believe that because I know that I'm imperfect, and I pray, and I always give it to God every night and just say, Lord, I know that this is happening for me, not to me. And I trust in him. And every day I wake up and, I praise him for allowing me to go about my day another day and be here on this earth to be able to help and serve people.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. And there's people here that get it, that say, yeah, that's how I want to operate my business. So I'm going to land on this. We know that in our industry, it's about the bottom line. How do you believe that your core, and again, we also know it's not about the bottom line, it's about the people. I get all that. But we know we're in a transactional industry overall. The people like yourself, the people like, again, the folks that have been on this podcast really believe in developing their people, and they have low turnover, and they do training. They do that so well, and they have great cultures. But if we're talking to the people out there that maybe aren't believers yet, not necessarily in terms of faith, but well, I just want to get the profit. What has your business philosophy done for your business?
It's crazy how successful we are, and it's not only just monetarily, but just as turnover and just overall, just morale. I don't have a whole lot of turnover. Occasionally, the people that do leave me, ultimately they're leaving. We just had a body shop tech that left us here shortly, and he even came just to Ken, I really don't want to leave you, but he was pushed from an outside source, and it was a family member, the reason why. But he honestly, when somebody tells you they don't want to leave your organization, that speaks volumes for who you are, or as an organization. And it's not me. I am just an individual inside this organization. BZ is its own living, breathing team. And one day I will be replaced. And I'm excited for the future of where we're going to go as an organization, because each and every time somebody comes into our organization, I have a vested interest in making sure that I help them be as the most successful person that they can be, or the most successful human that they can be, whether it's personally or professionally. I want to push them at both aspects of their lives, and I have a vested interest in that, because when they succeed, we succeed. And at the end of the day, culture is about holding a standard and having that standard, and not accepting just mediocrity. If you know somebody is supposed to do something, you have to hold them to that standard of doing it. And I think that is what culture is. Yes, we have core values. We have a just cause that helps guide us, but you got to hold people accountable in the correct way.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. So good. I love, you mentioned 21 irrefutables before, and you're going to teach on that on
Right.
Thursday. And my guess is you're going with the 21 Laws Leadership Evaluation, which is in the workbook. And it's a great 21 questions to ask your team. And I have to tell you, I've done that, oh my gosh, 100 with dealerships, and all the high egos in the room, all of them, or everybody's got something where they raise their hand and say, "Yep, I got something to work on. I'm really glad I did this." So, congratulations for that. We're not trying to catch them doing something wrong, but we're trying to give them an opportunity to look at their blind spots so they can grow themselves. And you said something earlier, which is my favorite quote. We'll close on this. You can get anything you want if you help enough people get what they want. And that's your philosophy of your business, right? You're helping them get what they want. You mentioned cause, and I don't know where this came from, but I realized, I think it was when I was listening about Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs had a signal. He had something that was his big cause. And every day he'd get up early and develop 2 or 3 or 4 things that get him closer to that big cause during the day. And he would say that that signal, that thing that's going to get him toward his cause is 80% of his day. The noise is 20% of his day. Mm-hmm. So he was so focused on the cause. And what I've learned from my coach is that with every cause, you have to have a because. Steve Jobs is a perfect example, along with Ken Cook, of you've got a because, you've got a reason. And Marshall Goldsmith says, have 25 reasons behind a cause and you'll never fade. You'll be in there through every storm. So yeah, your story is so powerful. And
thank you. Definitely not on the level of Steve Jobs, but I care about my team members. I have a vested, I love the car business. I think that we are in the greatest industry alive, and a great, amazing time too, with AI and everything. So I'm just excited to be. I'm excited to be into the life, into the era that we live in. I love the business I'm in. So
right on. You know what, Steve Jobs, what I hear was not a great man. You're a great
I heard
man.
That.
You're a great man, and I love your values. I love the time we spent together. Please, 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 let's do this again, because I think you bring so much value to the table. Our industry needs to hear your story.
Thank you, Bart. I really appreciate you having me on. I've enjoyed my time when I met you. Last 2 weeks ago, and then also today. I love collaborating with like-minded individuals. So thank you for everything you do for our industry.
Thank you. And you know what, Ken, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
My cell phone is 260-740-1136, or you could shoot me an email at ken@drivebz.com. I would honestly love to connect with anybody. And again, I am an imperfect human, and I am I'm a student of this industry. So I'm always willing to learn. And the only way you learn is by collaborating and talking to other like-minded individuals. So
that's right. So good. And God bless you. Thank you for sharing your story. And we look forward to doing it again. Hey, if you like this one, you know the deal. Please go ahead and share it with somebody. Share it with all your auto friends. Share it with anybody that's building a business from the ground up and needs to know how to do it right. Hey, this is a good one. Appreciate you guys. Go ahead and subscribe, share this, and we'll see you next time on Keep the Change. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks. Have a great day.